Cardigan.
Just
Welcome to your awakening. Please take calm as your reality is adjusted.
Please stay calm as your reality is adjusted. Change that view so I can see the chat room properly. Hello, everyone in the chat room. Switch that to live chat. Yeah, Google filter crap. Anyway, yes, hello, everyone. Good evening, greetings, salutations, well met, fellow, hail, all that good stuff. Stop screen sharing now. Welcome again back to another episode of Excalibre on this Moon Day evening, all that branding, repetition kind of stuff. You all know how it goes. And all the usual mantra like click the button, subscribe, click, share, all that good stuff, whatever. But we're still here. Yeah, all that usual kind of YouTube jargon, YouTube vernacular, YouTube mantra, or maybe I could say YouTube dogma. Like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Here's a repeated branding slogan that I'll say every time I turn the camera on. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you know how all that crap goes. Sorry, I'm just swapping and changing through tabs so I can see all the things I want to be looking at. Yeah, you know how it goes, but we are still here despite the recent purge that has been going yet again here on the GooTubes, in the media sphere, in the internets. I'm just using silly words because it is just all silliness with unfortunately real effect of how it messes with our world and primarily with our perceptions, but that then affects the world that you experience and the world you choose to build and share with each other. As Peter mentioned just before we started, the media is a weapon. It certainly can be a weapon. It can be used as a weapon. And what we've been experiencing for the last however long, I was going to say few years, but you could trace it back in history. Just ask Mr. Eric Blair, otherwise known as George Orwell. His experiences of working at the BBC. Media has always been used as a weapon. And even more so now, it is a weapon being used against us deliberately, purposefully. It's not incompetence. Mistakes were made. Oh, we'll learn better next time. Next time we introduce the lockdowns, we'll do it better. We'll do it longer and harder. Anyway, I promised I wouldn't monologue, but I just wanted to mention a few things before we get going. Partly a little bit of kind of housekeeping stuff, but that's why I mentioned the YouTube stuff. It's like, we are still here. We're still broadcasting. They haven't shut me down. They haven't shut my channel down. I hope that is simply because I'm not really interested in the QAnon stuff. I don't really do all that Q crap. I call it crap because, as far as I'm concerned, from near enough when it started, it was pretty obvious to me that it was a controlled opposition and part of the whole political game being used by Trump and his cadre, all the people he's got working for him. I'm sure he can hire some very clever professionals to work on his marketing and branding and promotion and all that kind of stuff, which would include things like native marketing, which is where they get right down into the kind of atomized environment of they will have people turn up in chat rooms and post positive comments about Trump's candidacy and whatever. Yeah, that kind of marketing. And they will put memes out into the world to deliberately play to certain demographics. And as was it Oscar Wilde, I think, said a long time ago, there's no such thing as bad press. even a lot of the negative stuff you might see about whatever particular candidate could very well have come from their own production studio, their own production house, because all advertising is advertising as far as they're concerned. And when it comes to getting people back into the political game, the political theatre, they'll use whatever method to re-engage you with the political system and keep reinforcing the illusion that the political game is something that can actually work for you in the way that they've tricked you into believing. The political system is not for you. It's a big club and you ain't invited, as George Carlin put it. You're not in that big club. It is all just a sham, charade, a theatre play, a pantomime. It's behind you. Oh, no, it isn't. It's Bojo the Clown. It's all done just to give you an illusion that your vote, your X, to mark your idiocy, because that's what it means when you put an X in a box. It means you're not a sentient, sovereign. Use that word carefully because I know they're looking for those as keywords. Sentient being unto yourself. You're not sui generis with your own free will to put your own chosen name down or whatever that you are known by. No, you put an X in a box which designates you as being an idiot, but you're the idiot that supports these people that make claims to authority, positions of authority. I could rant for hours on that shit. Sorry, I'm digressing and distracting myself from getting on with doing this stuff so that we can start yakking and it's not just me monologuing. Hello to everyone in the chat. Alan, hello, Big Al. If you want to hear some good singing, go and check out his channel, his videos. He does some fantastic singing. Yeah, inspirational stuff, mate. Thank you. And Society of the Spectacle, let's go. He's in the room. Stewie, hello. Tazzy's in the chat, and she'll be back in the room in a bit. And P. Murph, hello, mate. Hope you're doing all right up there, and you haven't been locked down too excessively, although I know they might tell you to lock down, but whether you actually do that is another question. But yeah, it's going to reach all of us soon enough. So says hello. Thanks for joining into the rabble. Rabble. They've come for a jibs. New being, hello. It's over in Sweden. It sounds like it would be much nicer to be over there in Sweden at the moment, so I'm a bit jealous, but yeah, can't exactly get over there at the moment. The trip home, hello. Thanks for joining in. And Cardini, hello, mate. Hope you're all right. Yeah, hiding in your outback ranch in the depths of Europe. He's hiding in the woods like the Teutonic Knights. Yeah. Trying to escape the rise of the empire. But that's the best way to do it, or certainly one of the best ways to do all that kind of stuff at the moment. Get out and away from all the craziness. Krishna, hello, mate. Hope you're all right. I'm trying to scroll down and just say hello to everyone that's joining in from the beginning, because often, this chat box loses its cache and then I don't get to see who was in earlier in the broadcast and stuff like that, because it gets cycled off the cache, out of the cache, so I can't see it anymore. So hello to everyone joining in. These broadcasts are still going. YouTube hasn't done anything to my channel. Hopefully, most likely, as I say, because I'm nothing to do with Q or QAnon and all that kind of shit. And that seems to be primarily what they were fixated on. I know it's another example of the same old censorship rolling out and the purge effect of them shutting down people's free speech and ability to put stuff out into the public. Yes, that's part of it. I don't agree with any of that, but I'm nothing to do with Q, so they don't seem interested in targeting me or shutting me down. Plus, I think I might have mentioned this the other week or last Wednesday. They don't seem to be going after the smaller channels like these. They're really going for the bigger channels that get a lot more traffic and potentially have a lot more influence on public discussion. So, these little backwater places that you find seem to be being left alone so far. But that's so far, yeah. Wish Fix, hello. Thanks for joining in, right? And Emancipate. It's always been awkward to say that. Made up name backwards. Thanks for joining, right? Yeah, mistakes were made is a lie. The fact that they knew from SARS that ventilators were dangerous. Yeah, that's a very good point, right? Yeah, they knew this for the last few years, long before this supposed incident. There is terminology for a different care pathway that they'd set up before, and I can't recall it now, and I'm just distracting myself. So don't worry about it. Forget I mentioned it. Uni Black Sister, hello. Hope you're all right over there in the Americas. And Lion Share, hello. Now the chat's jumping around on me because I'm not catching up fast enough. And I said hello to you. Quick scroll down. And you. Don't mistake the Y for a J. Yes, hello. Silver Streamist, hello. Thanks for joining in. And Richard Cooks, hello. Right, I think I've scrolled all the way down to the bottom. If I have missed you out, sorry, just post something again, and I'll see it come up on the new fresh on the chat room. Right, I'll be up and get on with what I was going to say before we move on. Yeah, this week in the subtitle, I just put, how are your levels? That's not exactly the question I was thinking of that I wanted to ask and talk about, but it sort of seems very appropriate at the moment from a lot of the general sort of numb, that's the only way I can think of describing it, the kind of numb reaction that the public seems to be having or experiencing and going through since, the last couple of weeks. And they've been, like I said many times, they've been telegraphing what they're going to do within the next few weeks. They kept dropping massive hints about localized lockdowns and circuit breakers, a nice bit of sloganeering to give to the public to throw around, to get the idea out there. Lo and behold, now it's beginning. Wales is going to be shut as of Friday, isn't it? I think, Pete. Is it this Friday?
Yeah, this Friday, Cookie. Yeah, we're going back into full lockdown. Yeah, basically.
So it's not going to stop just in Wales. As we know, there's localised full-on lockdowns in certain areas. Dean had to drop out. I think he's having trouble with his microphone or something. He couldn't get it working. Where he is, it's locked down. Basically a large part of the north of the UK has been locked down. Scotland is probably going to be not far behind in having a circuit breaker lockdown.
Yeah.
So, how are your levels? And that's a reference to Brave New World, Huxley story, when they're taking the Soma. Every time something unpleasant happens or when they get a bit stressed out, they have another dose of Soma to calm themselves down and balance their levels out back to double plus good. Yeah, it just seemed to be that's what we're getting at the moment. Maybe it's also a bit of that kind of, I think we talked about this the other night as well, the kind of SAD effect, the seasonal change. People are getting into the kind of winter mindset where they're not so much, wanting to be out and about. It's more of a dark, it gets dark earlier, so people's focus tends to be more around the home and staying indoors, avoiding the bad weather and the cold and all that kind of stuff. Quite appropriate that, we're heading into the winter of discontent. But it could also be the beginnings of the decade of health. And in my notes, I put a little question mark at the end of that. The decade of health. Haven't we sort of been experiencing that for the last couple of decades? Supposedly, according to them, they've been, building us up in the last couple of decades. They've given people more and more vaccines and pharmaceutical methods to deal with stuff, And it just straight away when I saw the slogan and the fact that it's a Gates Foundation funded idea, it just instantly made me think of that Krishnamurti quote again. It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. So when they say decade of health, maybe you could just change the word health to something like control. I think Sheridan mentioned this the other day, Thomas Sheridan, talking about using the slogan Control 19, with control spelt with a K, because it has more, how can I put it, mystical or spiritual impact, the letter K. I've talked about that many times in the past, why the K is in the position it is in the English alphabet and stuff like that. But yeah, the decade of control, the decade of dominance, the decade of transferring you to a transhumanist technocracy. They call that health, as that Krishnamurti quote says. How do you measure that supposed health when the health is within an already sick body anyway? Yeah, somebody who's dying from some sickness, but you say, oh, well, at least their ears are all right. That's a measure of the health of their bodies, the fact that their ears are still whole and in one piece. Yeah. Anyway, Lotsome Tatro, hello, mate. Just seeing you in the chat. And Mr. Wild Brew, hello. It is mushy season, so maybe you've been having a wild mushy brew. Fair play to you if you are, if you pursue that direction. Sorry, that just distracted me thinking about the fact that it's mushy season. But the other thing I wanted to mention, the decade of health, that kind of point was the question I've been thinking of over the last week was, is this the future you were expecting? And I know it seems quite a simplistic question, could be a very simple answer, but I hope that you sort of think about it a bit further. Is this the future you were expecting? Well, it's not exactly the future anymore, is it? Because now it's the present. Now it is actually happening around you. Mentioned this many times recently. It's no longer a matter of talking about this stuff is coming, folks. Look at what they're heading towards. Look at where they're trying to take us. No, we've arrived. We're certainly in the foyer of the building that they're trying to persuade us to walk into. Yeah, this is the opening chapter kind of thing. But at the same time, if you contemplate on the word expected, it's not necessarily a sort of what's the word for it? A conclusive expectation. That's becoming a bit circular. I'm trying to explain what I mean. Expected doesn't necessarily mean that it will happen or that it is actually what you desired. Expected just means maybe you saw it coming and now it's arrived. It's a little bit sort of, you've already seen the horse after it's bolted out the stable. It's a bit obvious, but at the same time, it's like, where were your desires directing your thinking when talking about the future? What is your expectation that the future is going to be? Where do those expectations come from? Are they valid? Are they justified? Are they self-delusory? As in, when I was a kid, they told me we'd all have jetpacks by now, which is why I keep making a joke about where's my jetpack. That was an expectation I was given as a child, but it was a completely, well, maybe not completely, but certainly misdirected expectation. And it's part of the magical illusion, a bit like Santa Claus, of them giving the public a wish to play with. What would you do in the future? This is why I asked the question the other week. What would you do in the future when technology becomes so powerful? I use that word in parentheses, powerful, that it can in effect give you the abilities of what we would describe as a god. What would you do with all that power? What would you make happen? Where would you want to go? What would you want to do, etc., etc.? But that is driven by your expectations, your desires, your biases, your fears. On and on it goes. But yeah, is this the future you were expecting? A decade of health, which is, how do you use that word health? Is this actually healthy? What's going on at the moment? I was thinking, I know this is a bit sort of disjointed, but it was sort of coming out of the kind of pantomime theme that I've used a few times the last couple of episodes. I've used it a bit the last couple of episodes. And I was going to put in the subtitle just sausages. And it was, well, sausages? Well, I was thinking of the crocodile. Because what went through my mind when I watched Bojo the other day talking about the new 3-tier system, 3, it's a magic number, yeah, where there is no off, basically. It's either danger or more danger or really, 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 really more danger. Yeah, there is no back to normal tranquility, nothing like that. It's just everything's danger. It's always danger. And it just, when he was talking about the 3 tiers, and I was just thinking, like, this is like fucking crocodile tears. They're standing up at that podium claiming that they're doing this stuff to protect you. That's the crocodile tears, oh, I'm trying to save you. But at the same time, all they're trying to do is take all your fucking sausages. They're just like the crocodile in Punch and Judy. And that, I know what my mind was doing, sort of putting the two ideas of crocodile tears and pantomime kind of, conjoined in the middle. No, I just kept seeing Bojo as like the fucking comedy crocodile trying to get everyone's sausages. Yeah, that's just a bit of the silliness of how my mind goes sometimes. But maybe that's just my defense mechanism against the weaponization of the media that's been projecting at us. They're constantly, and I know we mentioned this last time, the WHO, the WHO, just last week put out a statement saying lockdowns don't work. They're actually counterproductive. They cause more damage than any help that they provide in terms of dealing with the pathogen. Lo and behold, the rhetoric, the propaganda didn't stop. They kept talking about lockdowns, and we had all these localized lockdowns happening. Was it Manchester where they got the big money bung to do the lockdown? And now Wales going into full-on circuit breaker lockdown. So, okay, so this is just like, really is like I'm watching a pantomime, and the characters on the stage are trying to convince me that there isn't the big bad crocodile in the background trying to eat everybody and all their stuff and whatever. It's there, but it's not, gaslighting again. Anyway, yeah. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever.
Yes,
what's going on.
Yes.
So when you said about the media as a weapon,
well, that's
it
the.
just made me think.
It seems that that's all they're using is the mainstream media. That's all they've got left. And if you say it's a decade of health, I'd say maybe I could come up with loads. Decade of distraction. Decade
of New World Order.
Daft shit. Decade of
flu. The flu world order.
Yeah, idiocracy. A decade of
placard on a video. Just said flu world order. That's a good one. Yeah.
But we forget as well, it's a decade where many more people have become more aware as well, and more so it's accelerating as we go towards the end of this year, and that's where it comes back to us. People, have been misinformed for far too long, and if they can see through the silliness now. It is like a circus more than ever, and the way they're trying to hang on, desperately trying to hang on to the last bit of this. Like we've mentioned in the words, that they'll use, a surge in cases or an explosion in case, in cases. Or
language that is very visual, as in it conjures images in the mind, but they're always
tsunami.
It's always something negative.
Yeah.
It made me think as well. I heard somebody, a UK column, talking about the growth rate, the GDP, and supposedly we've had a 20% drop in growth in the country because of all the COVID shit. Well, it's not the COVID, it's the lockdowns, but it just made me think, like, negative growth. They're growing the negative.
Yeah.
So in the same way as they're using that language to give you negative connotations, to elicit fear, basically. That's what it's about. They're trying to grow the negative.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, like say in Wales, they will go full lockdown, back to what it was in March or end of March, where they'll shut businesses down. There's been protests. I think there's a protest up this end of the weekend somewhere. There's businesses beginning to realise that they are going to fail. They are going to lose their. And that's what's so sad about all of this as well. Family businesses that have been going for generations are, it's gonna fail. and they won't get the help. You know, there's these smaller communities will struggle, you know, with losing some of these services and that. But we said this at the beginning, you know, it's not just going to be Wales, it's going to be Scotland, England, Ireland, Europe. You know, it's worldwide. It's not just us. We're all under the cosh, if you like, of this. We're not. No one's escaping, and people are feeling it big time now because they've, like I say, just announced this back to what it was 6 months ago. From Friday, 6 p.m.
Back
So
to
that's when the
where we
virus
start.
comes out. Yeah, that's when it knows. You see, as you said, it just knows when it's the
One of the
weekend, and you know, it's amazing.
one of the thing that's, I think, you know, I could say so much about this, but just to point it out, it's just that classic manipulation of time. When, however long ago, they told people just 2 weeks, just 3 weeks. Yeah, and I remember, you know, we said it back then. You'll see, folks, it won't just be 3 weeks. Lo and behold, here we are now, however many weeks later.
This is what I'm saying, and the way the media are, that's the weapon they're using at the moment. They will just ramp those headlines up more and more and more as this goes on longer and longer. So it convinces the people more and more it's bullshit. Well, they'll think it convinces them that they'll believe it, but it's having the opposite effect, and that's where it's all going wrong for them. And people are not going to, maybe, like say in London, they were out drinking, weren't they? There was videos of that popping up with Piers Corbyn and
playing cricket.
Yeah, and some people
cricket.
being arrested, you know, for, you know, seeing them getting carted off, and this kind of, you know, all the images of people seeing, you know, they don't want that to happen to them, you know, so they'll remain indoors, they'll do what they're told.
And don't make the connections in your mind of how, now that they've passed a bill that says the police can do whatever the fuck they want and not be prosecuted.
Yes, that's a scary bill, that.
And the details of anyone that is tested positive get passed to the police. And you've just been picked up for breaking the rules. You know, don't make those connections in your mind, folk. No, we're not in a police state. No. That's just crazy talk. You must be a conspiracy theorist.
And then turning up to the gym in Liverpool, I think we mentioned it last week, which got a £4,000 fine for the first offence or something, but they could come back every 2 hours basically and just double it and double it and double it into, you know, until they bankrupt you basically with huge fines you can't pay back. But they reckon people were clubbing together to help pay fines and stuff like that. They'd all clubbed together to try and combat this in some way so they could stay open. But I suppose the huge amounts and the regularity they can go into the premises like 5 times a day, they'll just rack up too much money basically. So, but you know, it's good to see people standing up anyway, and that's what, you know, all the retailers just open, all open. You know, everybody just do, you know, if you want to, because you're going to be bankrupt. It's Christmas coming up. We've had this all year, haven't we? So some will defy it, like we say, but it's how they then handle it going forward. The police will hit premises harder, I suppose, but they can't, you know, general public and stuff, people going out doing stuff, they can't police the border. They haven't got it, you know, but that's where people just, like I say, just don't interact with the system as least as you can in that sense, to withdraw your energy from it, and don't feed these corporations too much shit and just start doing your own thing.
And don't go to Morrison's, whatever you do, because they're sponsoring a policeman now. Did you see that?
Morrison's.
Let me just say this, and then I'll show that van after you've done your screen share. But let me just mention this. I find it indicative of the manipulation that they're attempting to do, the fact that they're trying to get most people fixated on Christmas, and Christmas is based on a delusionary expectation as well. Now, I know, you know, if whatever faith you choose to follow, if you follow a religion where those particular time of the year is marked as a holy day and stuff like that, and you believe in Jesus and whatever, that's fair enough. What I'm talking about is the commercialized concept of Christmas that the majority of the public are fixated on, and they're using that as the threat against you. So they're using a delusionary thing, as in there's this guy who lives in the North Pole who turns up once a year and gives you something for nothing. You know, it's like gifts out of thin air. Again, it's that wish game that they manipulate the public with. They're using that as the threat to stop you seeing through their delusion that what they're doing is part of a deliberate agenda to change your society completely.
Yeah, but
Does that make sense? Yeah? They're using a delusionary thing to distract you from another delusion.
But everything about Christmas that makes it good, the fact that you can take time off. People have already had a time off when they're in lockdown. Exactly.
Yeah.
People sit around and they treat themselves. They give themselves little Christmas treats to help them get through the lockdown. I mean, it's...
I was listening to Vernon Coleman just before I came on, and interestingly, we mentioned it before, and he was Chrislam, this religion thing, and it's interesting now they're like destroying the Christmas type of time of year and all the normal sort of stuff where they are trying to get one religion. And interestingly, Tony Blair's a big proponent of this type of idea, merging the religions together.
They have been steadily doing it over the last decade. They've been slowly creating a one world unified church, which is supposed to be quite secular in its approach, in the sense of all the faiths are included under one roof kind of thing. But there is a kind of a version that was dubbed Chrislam, which started sort of popping its head up back in like Tony Blair's time.
That's what I mean. He's been chatting about it for a long time, and it's something like, say, One World Bank, the thing we've talked about over the years of all this.
Personally, I think I very much like Vernon Coleman's stuff and what he puts out there, but I think he's a little bit behind the times in the sense of it's not just Chrislam. And if you look at what they've been doing, what the Pope's been doing, what they've been doing via the Vatican, and that kind of amalgamation of all the faiths in one place, you can't really call it Chrislam. It's far beyond just Christianity and Islam. It's all faiths being dominated by one global organized group. That's what you're talking about. Yes, a one world religion, where you can all wear different little uniforms, like your own personal choice of what your version of God, but it's all controlled and dominated by one bureaucracy.
I think it's really the wrong time for them to push that out. Maybe that's why they got Blair doing it, because they know that is the last jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? That proves everything the conspiracy theorists have been saying is true. Yeah.
Well, give a shout out to Steve as well, if he's listening.
These quotes as well,
Let me just say this: listening to his show Thursday, and we were chatting away in the chat and whatever, and it was brought up that kind of point of we've got to the stage now where really the state itself, the concept of government, has become like a religion, and that is part of that globalized merging of all those different aspects of our lives, society, etc. The state governance is transitioning into a global federal system that includes a section that encompasses religion. So you end up with a one world religion, a one world economy, a one world police and military force, etc., etc., etc.
Including this guy, Ivan Illich. He was known for writing, his most famous book was De-Schooling, in which he describes how the school system is not particularly good because, modern society's institutional approach to education, an approach that allegedly constrains learning to narrow situations in a fairly short period of human lifespan. So that was his view on schooling, why it's bad. But what's interesting is he said modern medicine is a negation of health. It isn't organized to serve human health, but only itself as an institution. It makes more people sick than it heals. Now, this guy was living in Mexico when he wrote this book, and he saw the transitioning in Mexico of their health system from one that was spread out in the villages with every, district nurse or whatever, and they were trying to copy the American one, and there was in this like space race for who can do the first heart transplant. And he was saying that, it might be a great thing to save somebody's life, but the money that costs, Now, again, they've taken that and turned it around. There is a line of thinking now that says, old people, it costs too much to keep them alive. So they're using their own arguments against them. But he was correct in this, because by centralising the health authority and global centralising it through the pharmaceutical companies, none of this could have happened if everybody had listened to this guy and said, demand your local health authority stays independent, demand that it remains a local health business or whatever, service.
Interesting. The last quote in that list considering what the question was I asked earlier, you know, is this the future you expected? And his last quote on there: we must rediscover the distinction between hope and expectation.
Well,
that's quite synchronistic. Right? I agree with him on that. Yeah,
well, all hope
can
is not
be, it's not necessarily unrealistic, but it can also be delusional.
Well, all hope is not lost because here, tier 2, what tier 2? Drinkers packed bars in London during the first night, yeah? Just about to go into lockdown. So I wrote, but don't worry, folks, McDonald's, Burger King, and Amazon will be happy to deliver to your door and take your digital cash in this brave new world. 900 thumbs up. Jesus Christ, man, yeah?
Yeah,
So,
good one.
people are not done, yeah? They didn't
No,
like
I think it is really starting to sink in. Like, I kept I've only got the one news story open at the moment. I've got a couple of things I'm going to share, like that Morrison story. But let me just show this one screen share.
that sheep thing was fucking real. Did you know that? I was looking at it on Twitter.
Two sheep apart equals 2 meters.
Yeah, somebody put that as a meme on fucking social media, taking a piss.
But it's a real.
And now it's a real fucking thing. They've copied it.
I'm glad you mentioned it, because that's a perfect opportunity to reiterate the reality of what's described as cognitive infiltration. Cognitive infiltration is when the system will deliberately appropriate words, slogans, and ideas that are gaining too much influence and traction amongst the public in terms of turning them away from the state. So a few years ago, they did that with the word woke and the concept of awakening and becoming aware of all the shit that you've been thrown at you constantly. Yeah, they appropriated that word and turned it into a parody of itself, and now it's just it's a joke. Yeah, when people say, "Oh, he's one of the woke crowd," you know that it means something derogatory. That's cognitive infiltration. They take the meaning of something and invert it and turn it into something detrimental to us. So they know that, I say we, I'm sort of presuming a little bit, but a lot of people who do this kind of alternative media content talk about this kind of point. You know, for years, the general public has often been referred to as the sheeple, the sheep. They did the same thing many years ago with that big white elephant in London, you know, the big dome thing that they built. And they did TV adverts showing loads of sheep running into it, and it was reverse psychology. Anyway, yeah, they're appropriating the concept of the sheeple and turning it into something that can be used against us to take the piss out of us, to parody us. So yeah, I noticed that as well. At first, I thought it was some kind of Photoshop mock-up. Yeah, but no, it is real. Those posters are real. Yeah, that's them. That's the system appropriating the idea of sheeple. Anyway, just to show this, thanks to Scott Webb as well. I saw his video mentioning this. This on the Daily Mail, dated the 16th, so only a few days ago. AI mask monitors are now policing our stores. CCTV that blocks people from entering a shop if they are not wearing a mask is being set up across UK.
Great.
But it's not a dictatorship. It's not a police state, folks. Oh no, you're just a crazy conspiracy theorist if you think things like that. Yet here it is, blatantly in your face.
So if you want to enter the store, let me get this right, and you're exempt from wearing a mask anyway, then you have to identify yourself as being someone who's exempt, which is also, you don't have to. If you don't need to, they shouldn't question you anyway, but the monitor's doing it for them.
Yeah. And this is another example, as often mentioned, certainly by me, and I know a few people have pointed this out over the last few months. The system itself, the state, the government, doesn't need to create legislation or a mandate and make it all public and make a big song and dance about how we are going to enforce this rule and that rule and you must do this. They just encourage and influence the industries, the commercial sector, the businesses to implement these things. And then, like this place, I'm not sure if it actually says which particular stores are doing it. I think
most of the
Tesco's.
Big ones, yeah.
Yeah, certainly the big superstores will probably join in with this. But the point is, it's the shops themselves, the businesses themselves that are implementing this stuff. And if it's implemented the way it's described, that's basically like the door just doesn't open. It won't let you in. So you go to the shop to get food because you need food because you're hungry, but you ain't wearing a mask. So the shop basically just denies you entry. No,
Yeah,
nothing
I
to do
know.
with government, nothing to do with a policeman standing at the door saying you're a naughty person, you're not allowed to go in, blah, blah. No, just a computer algorithm makes a decision to block you.
I think it's a bit of a con, this story, because it says it's a shopping centre where they're using it. Yeah, and it doesn't mention a single shop. And if you think to yourself, oh, it's not the actual shops that have asked for this CTB, they probably don't fucking want the thing. It's the
Well,
shopping
they wouldn't get any
centre
choice.
demanding
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
those things operate as a business, mate, like the mall or the centre that each of those businesses are in. The mall itself is a business unto itself, yeah? Each of the
Yeah.
shops in there have to pay rent and are subject to a tenancy agreement, which means if the building owner decides to install that stuff, the shops within that mall, that shopping centre, don't get a choice in it. It's nothing to do with them. It's up to the landlord of the property itself. Yeah?
Right, and the landlord, now knowing that this fucking app is going to come out, track and trace, doesn't want any fucking body testing positive in his fucking shopping department because he'd have to close the whole thing down. But he wouldn't. He'd have a word with fucking Boris and leave it open. But yeah, in theory, yeah, he would.
I thought it was an appropriate story to go with the other one that you linked. Yeah? About the Morrison's.
That's definitely more hands-on. You can actually hurt Morrison's company by never shopping there again. Because you can do something. Yeah.
Hang on, let me look. Do it on this page. Sorry, switching the screen share just for a moment so I can post that link in, just to make sure it goes in properly. Yeah, this is on Jim Griffith's channel. Yeah, I think just that image, I don't need to play the video, just that image says it all. But if I find one where you can actually clearly see. Because it had Morrison's logos all up. Oh, hang on. No, back up a little bit to see there is a camera right on top of it. Look.
I think you're on the poster on the rear because it kind of tells you that this is not a police van. Morrison's have paid for this van, they've paid for all the fucking technology inside it, and the police are the ones who have access to all that recording, yeah, because people were attacked in Morrison's, yeah, sometime. Yeah, there you go.
Operated by Morrison's PLC.
Okay, I've got to go.
Wow. Yep.
All
Cheers,
right,
Gary.
okay.
Yep, keep watching.
All right, I'll see you again soon. He does go into, like, I think he got a letter from him talking about it. But yeah.
Dear resident. Yeah.
Private security, basically, being operated by the superstores themselves.
Yeah.
And they're claiming that this is to do with people getting violent in the stores, or, you know, getting aggressive with the staff, things like that, which is something that's happened all along for years. You know, some people just have a bad day or whatever their reason, they, you know, get a argy-bargy with some of the staff or whatever, so they call the police. But now that job isn't exactly going to be done by the police, it's going to be done by private security firms.
And then you get a letter or whatever, like they do with the well, then if you've arrived in your car, then they'll know who you are in that sense. They know where to send the fines, they know where to
APR.
Yeah, just like they send you issue speeding tickets, that sort of thing, with these vans set up in the car parks. Thanks to Morrison's. Thank you, Morrison's. Wow, it's unbelievable, isn't it, where we're heading, where we're going here? And people are just, again, it's just, you know, let's just wait and see how long these sorts of things actually stay in place. I mean, if they're going to be, I mean, if we're saying indefinitely, then that's negative. I don't want to think negative. So it's not going to be indefinitely because people are waking up. And this is something that, again, is will be removed. We demand the removal of them, and they'll be removed at some point because this is getting out of control now, isn't it? And, you know, they just, yeah. and facial recognition and this type of thing. I mean, with the masks on, it was interesting, that, isn't it? How that goes forward. Maybe iris scans are coming in more.
Well,
Who knows?
they don't. They could. They can in some places. There are already that kind of software installed in the cameras and whatever, but they don't necessarily need to do that, because this will also be combined. You know, there's a lot of agendas coming together at the same time. You know, we've talked about this many times before.
The technological stuff. Yeah.
In that car park, in one of those lampposts, because the supermarkets, being as a business, they will franchise out into other areas to earn a profit. So they will rent space on their property for the installation of things like mobile phone masts, which they already do. A lot of the supermarkets host mobile phone masts, but that will now include the more up-to-date smart tech, the 5G installations, things like that, which means when you drive onto that car park, not only will the local CCTV cameras do the APR thing on your number plate in your vehicle, and that will then be linked to you via the DVLA, but the sensors in the smart tech will pick up any devices you are carrying with you or in the vehicle, and there can be various amounts of data harvested from that as well, including the smart tech itself pinging out its location and blah, blah, blah. So they're going to know where you came from, where you just were, how long you spent there, how fast you drove here. It's a wealth of data, the data, the new resources, So it's not, to me, this is more about that transition of policing from the old world, the way things normally were with a judiciary via the police force. Now it's going to be a corporate enforcement in most places.
Corporate power, is getting more and more, these guys throwing money now into these, into this. It's like, like I say, we're waking up. Like I say, if you haven't got another supermarket, though, you're pretty screwed out if you want to boycott them. That's what I'm thinking. But it's just difficult, isn't it, when they start doing it everywhere? It won't be just Morrison's. If it's Morrison's, it'll be the others as well.
Yeah, they'll all join in.
They'll all do it.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Let's leave the optimism window open as we're going around slamming all the doors. Let's leave the optimism window open. Yeah, most likely they'll all do pretty much the same thing. And it's only really going to change direction. Again, I know I'm repeating myself a lot tonight, but as we've said this point many times, it's only going to change direction when people vote with their feet, vote with their wallets, vote with their choices.
So that's so much. That's how you do it. And you hit them in the pocket.
Unfortunate the reality that for the vast majority of the population, we're in a situation, I include myself in this, we're in a situation where you have to go to those shops to buy a lot of your stuff. Not necessarily everything, but the way the food industry has been monopolized, you end up going to them at some point or another for some part of your stock in the cupboards. But the more we don't go to them, the more we go to other places, especially the smaller independent businesses that are being deliberately shut down at the moment so that they can be erased, so that these big monopolies, which will follow the agendas and do things like that mobile
as we've seen
unit, the big corporations will do shit like that because it's corporate policy. There is no direct personal liability involved, so they don't give a fuck if you get stomped on by their system. There isn't a face that you can prosecute or hold liable for the shit that happens. It's just the corporate entity that is doing it, and it's all to, pursue the profit margin end so that they can pay the shareholders dividends. That's the corporate system.
Yes, and you got to do it all again next year. Now get on with it, isn't it? That's how it works. Well, like I say, it's a non-compliant thing. As that's when people start saying, "No, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to do this. No, I'm not going to give you that or this," and just growing your own food and things of this. And they're just doing small amounts because that has an effect on them. If millions are doing it, it would have an effect on their profits. They'd see less things being sold. They'd see less things. They again, and the shareholders are not happy. See, that old model's got to go. That's what I mean. There's all old, outdated stuff where people are working sweating their balls off, for someone else to just collect it all and say, right, and give you a few scraps off the table in a wage, and then say, right, do it all again and keep doing it whilst we sit there and just get bigger and bigger. I worked that out in the 1980s. I thought, wow, how am I going to, wow. I was just like, like you say, you just have to get on with it to a certain degree, but you're being had off, you're being ripped off, and you're being used and abused, and they just give you whatever in return. But if you get into the their little market where you make all that money, we see all the corruption going on in that financial markets anyway over the years, and where all these scumbags actually come from, like the Epsteins and all the rest of them, they all have their money and make their money that way. Yeah,
it's a cauldron of corruption.
Oh yeah, from top to bottom. But it's all been revealed as well. So the year of 2020, amazing. We're seeing all this now.
Another bit of revelation of seeing things, seeing the reality for what it is. I just this is off the UK column news from today, but I just wanted to pause it on this one image because of the graph. All the deaths in 2020 average, for past 5 years, and the influenza and pneumonia deaths involving COVID-19. Note the word involving. So they can't even say directly, died from.
Yes, from.
And they're being careful to not use words like with anymore because they know people have cottoned on to that. Yeah. But this is from the Office of National Statistics. So it's their official figures, and the correlations just reveal, this is what they were talking about on the UK column. It just reveals, like you were saying earlier as well, the media as a weapon.
Yeah.
These are the results of the media propaganda combined with the time period of the lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also point out with this, I haven't got the image to hand, but you can find it easy enough online. Look at, when did they start to mandate the masks? It was it July or June? It was about the middle of the summer, wasn't it, when they started sort of pushing towards making everyone wear masks everywhere.
In shops.
Yeah. Well, in enclosed spaces, yeah. But look at how, as the graph really directly changed, apart from the bank holiday, which is that little trough there, did the statistics really vary much because of the masks? Did they start dropping dramatically because everyone was wearing masks?
Nope.
No. And the other graphic I was talking about is if you go and look at the incidence curve for the illness from other countries, and in particular look at the graph for Sweden, where there has been no lockdown, no mask mandate, etc., 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 and their graph is almost identical, apart from the little peaks, because that's based on the propaganda output. But my point being, their own statistics, their own graphs prove that wearing of masks is statistically insignificant. In other words, it doesn't really make any difference one way or the other. It's purely psychological. It's about affecting people's perception by having everyone walking around wearing a mask, or the majority of people. That creates a visual image to elicit fear in the people that see it. Because when you see someone wearing a mask, straight away in your mind, you're thinking, oh, there's something infectious around, or there's something dangerous. Elicit fear. That's all it's about. It made no difference to the infection or incident rate at all.
No, and we know it's the politicians who want you to wear them, not the fact that even the science doesn't back it up. And they still want you to wear them. It's like we're being punished. It's like a punishment because that's how they want to do it over here. It's like in France, they're doing curfews from, is it 6 p.m. till 9 a.m. or something like that. Or anyway, they're locking down Paris and a curfew, and they have a different way of dealing with it. They do it, you can't go out, you can go out in the day, but that's it. After a certain time, you're locked in all night.
The amazing time-telling virus.
It's just what country you find yourself in for what crazy fucking ruler we have, or dictator, or whatever you want to call them.
Does that also mean then that the virus comprehends the differences in time zones and the time of the year? So is the virus going to know that the clocks have been set back?
Maybe.
Is it going to know that you can't go in the pub until after 10 p.m? That's when it's allowed in the pub.
Yeah.
That's why we can all go in the pub until 10 p.m. But then 10 p.m. it's the virus's turn to go in the pub, so we all have to leave.
So all these statistics we show in everything is showing, isn't it, how much they're lying and propagandizing it and using it as against us, and we're believing it, and they're just either trying to provoke people. I've heard people saying today, like there's going to be an uprising or whatever. I don't think, that's a big sort of, that worries me in that sense. It doesn't need to become, people are angry, obviously, especially now they're realizing a second lockdown is upon them, and back to everything like it was 6 months back. And it'll happen in England too. It will happen. I think they're going to go. I don't know what it's like in England at the moment, or where you are, Cookie. But
It just, like I said,
it's the same. It's in bits.
Numb.
Yeah.
The same old shit's been out on the media, but just in general, seeing how people are walking around and interacting with each other, it just seems a bit numb. I think people are just doing that kind of, just get on with the day and hope that nothing worse happens when I get home and look at the news. But other than that, they're just keeping their heads down and going about their usual day-to-day stuff. But
I think it's going to wear people down, this second one. I think people are beginning to get, and it's that psychological war, and the war on us I talk about a lot. This is what they've been doing for a long time. We are like, they are using their weapon, to stop you going out, socializing, going to the pub with your mates, shutting down the restaurants, shutting down everything you could do in a cities, especially. It's more difficult because there's nothing else to do, is there? If you live in a bit more sort of rural areas, or where you've got some nicer scenery, it's a little bit more manageable in that sense. But still, you can't, as a younger person, that's where they're really affecting it, with the young people, who socialize. That's what you do, you go out, and whatever, but they really are abusing that, psychologically in people, especially in the youth, and younger kids are not going to get over this to a certain, when they get older.
It's going to become fundamental in be part of their reality.
And they're not realizing really what damage we're doing to each other by just agreeing with all this madness. And we see the madness, we know it's crazy, so we still carry on, it seems, or people still will go through the motions. But now the second lockdown's here. Let's just see. Like I say, people have been since March now, 8 months now, is it? Nearly, almost 9 months, 10 months. Christmas, Santa hasn't going to arrive this year. He's got COVID. The children will be distraught. How much more psychological damage? And you shouldn't lie to the kids anyway. Santa's bullshit. I know all that, but you know what I'm saying. It's like the time of year where people, like you say, are programmed into Christmas the way that they are, in that traditional sense, where it is just a program we run. I felt that over the last 5 or 6 Christmases sometimes, where as you get older, you think, it comes down quickly and quicker as you get older, but it's also the same things. And that program, they're going to, disrupt it, or try to, or psychologically fuck you up enough where you don't even want to go anywhere for Christmas because you've had a shit year, and just make you more fucking depressed. That's what they're sort of aiming at, with a lot of people. And that's the thing, where people aren't looking at that, the psychological effects and damage it's having, right across, the populations.
I think that's where you get to that point where maybe, hopefully, more people see this thing for what it is, and they get past that shock factor, the trauma factor.
Time to wake up.
Realizing that this shit is actually being done to them, not for them. The government isn't acting for your benefit, for your health. It is subjecting you to what it wants. They're talking about it as if it's an individual, but you get my meaning. In the same way as I was thinking, if you look at the situation from the perception that we, the general public, are the virus, and what the government is enacting, the lockdowns and the control of movement and all this kind of stuff, is them treating us as if we are the virus. And I know, it could be argued that, well, we are the carriers, in that respect. If there is a virus, then we're the ones carrying it around.
We are the problem. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And that all ties in with the whole Agenda 21, 2030 kind of thing, all that kind of
Yeah.
sustainable development stuff, that we are a burden on the planet and we eat too much and we do too much and we fart too much and blah, 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 blah. So they're viewing us as the problem, as the virus, as the enemy. Yeah. And if you look at the situation again from that perception, what they are doing makes sense. It no longer seems chaotic and confusing. Yeah, I know we've spoken about this in different ways, but talking about how the perception of confusion is deliberately put out there so that they can get away with the excuse of mistakes were made. Like I mentioned earlier, that person was just incompetent. They've now been sacked. Always makes me think of Starship Troopers. Sky Marshal Howard has been removed from her position for failing the mission. And now we welcome Sky Marshal Cook. And it's that kind of thing of they will excuse what they're doing by claiming that it was a mistake or incompetence. That individual gets shuffled to somewhere else in government, or they jump through the swing door into big business. Tony Blair. They jump through the swing door where they make even more money, and then at a later date they sneak back in to the political theatre and they start enacting legislation that benefits the corporations that they were working for, etc. On and on it goes. But my point is, if you use that perception to look at the situation of what's happened and is happening, it makes sense. It no longer has that air of confusion and, this must just be crazy. Why are they doing these silly things? Why are they making these silly mistakes? And a lot of the public is stuck at that point. And that's when you see the cognitive dissonance of them running little circles. They run up to the realization and think, oh no, that can't be, surely that can't be the truth. No, that's terrible, that's horrible. Oh no, run back to the beginning, run the equation again. But if you shift your perception and go, hang on, if I look at the situation and think from the point of view of it's actually us that are the enemy they're talking about, then what they're doing just makes sense. It makes strategic sense. It makes logistic sense of how they've divided the country up into lockable regions. That's like they're building a little wall around each little area so that they can, turn the key and keep us in sections. It's exactly what they're doing. It's like the airlock systems in a pathology lab that hosts dangerous materials. They have these airlock systems. That's what they're doing to society. They're setting up the airlocks so they can control your movement and activity, like you are the virus.
I'd just like to say though, it's all coming down.
The more they're doing it, I'm glad you said it, because it reminded me. So I sort of started saying one thing, and like I usually do, I run off in a different direction. The more they do it, the more fertilizer they're putting out into the public, so more people start to see it for what it is and start making their own progression.
Yeah.
So if anything, the initial sort of realization that can make a lot of these subjects seem very much like their catastrophism, which is what I've been accused of so often over the years. Oh, you're just talking about doom. It's all doom with you. So you don't see the fact that once you realize that that is what they're doing, it gives you more hope, the fact that you can see it for what it is. That means you have more ability to go a different direction. It's like realizing that you do actually perceive the enemy hiding in the bushes. Once you've made that perception, you can actually make more successful plans of how to deal with that enemy. Well, while you're still under the confusion and delusion of not thinking there is actually an enemy there. I think I've used the metaphor before, the tiger in the leaves, the tiger emerging out of the leaves. if you just think, oh, it's just leaves, but it keeps growling every now and then. Oh, I'm scared, it's growling bushes, yeah. But you don't actually see the tiger because it's camouflaged itself. You're in this constant dissonant circle of delusion, yeah, constantly being manipulated through fear. The tiger growls every now and then just to make sure you keep running in a little circle, yeah. But once you see it in the bushes, you're like, oh, right, there it is. Right now I can plan, I can do this, I can prepare this, ready to deal with it if it comes. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
It
all
may seem daunting, even depressing and demoralizing when you look at this situation and think they're doing what now? That's
Yeah.
dystopian craziness. That's fascism. That's full on technocracy, blah, blah, blah. But once you actually see it, you can go, right, okay, now I can actually see it. I know that if I go this direction, I'll avoid it. Yeah, you can't sort of get around a problem or deal with a problem until you can see it for what it is. Hopefully that makes sense. To me, this is why over the years I've become more and more optimistic, not less. The more they've actually been playing out their agendas and the more this thing is revealing itself blatantly, overtly, the more it makes me optimistic to, yeah, this is going to aid us in so many ways. This is going to give us so much more empowerment. I'm saying us as a popularism assumption, sorry, but that's the way I perceive it.
Yeah.
This is why, I look at a lot of this stuff that I know a lot of people see it and it makes them really, they just feel like the drudgery of it. You can see them sort of dropping and dropping and dropping as they're like you're piling bricks on their back. And it's like, no, every brick is making you stronger. They keep trying to put bricks on your back and you're just getting stronger and taller and more powerful because you can see what they're doing. Yeah, you're no longer deluded into believing that they're trying to do this for your health or your benefit. You see them for the tricksters that they are.
Your senses are up now. Good.
Yeah.
It takes a while, doesn't it? And then, that's, I think for me, it was seeing that swine flu thing back in the day, 2009, really linking that sort of real sort of just stood out at me so much with the vaccine stuff, and could see what the narratives were just before that and going through and up to that, and just realized that, that's the game they play. Another revealing from like a cascade. Then you think, wow, okay, and what else, and what this, that, and the other, and you just realize that pretty much they've turned the world upside down before you were born, and turned it into a sort of crazy place anyway. And now with the way that they've steered it up to this point, just really, it just shows that they can pull a stunt like that, and get people to not realize they're just coronaviruses. We knew this back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, we knew all this. It's not unusual.
I know I've made this point before a few times, but just sort of to reiterate it, to try and again point at the insanity of what they've been talking about and doing this year.
Yeah.
If you claim that you want to, or you think we should all be wearing masks because it's going to protect us from the deadly COVID, COVID this year, COVID, then you just revealed to me that you're obviously a horrible, nasty person that doesn't care about anyone else. Why? Because last year, during flu season, you didn't wear a mask. And the year before that, during flu season, you didn't wear a mask. You're a horrible, nasty person that doesn't care about anyone ever. Yeah, so these flu seasons have been around for time immemorial.
Yeah.
And that's just one particular illness. There's other things that, we talked about stuff like tuberculosis and things like that.
Yeah.
There's other illnesses that are out there almost all the time. Maybe they swell up every now and again, like some seasonal flu will be worse some years than others. They've never tried to do what they're doing now for any of those other situations. Those other situations are still ongoing now. I think I pointed this out last week, sort of pointed at the reference of the figures that they publish. Yeah? This year's seasonal flu has been 10 times as deadly as this supposed COVID. So, well, if that's true, then Why weren't we wearing masks last year? Why weren't we locking down society last year? Because we had flu last year as well, and the year before, and the year before, and the year before. Why all of a sudden now, this year, as all the or nearly all the governments around the world decided that the way to deal with these kind of problems is doing what they've been doing? Masks, lockdowns, all this kind of shit.
Well, they know we're waking up and they're panicking like fuck. Yeah.
It is about changing the way society's infrastructure operates.
Yeah.
Introducing you to the virtual panopticon.
Yeah.
You now live in an open air prison. Welcome to the reservation. As I can't think which name, I said it several years ago. I'm not sure if that video is still on my channel. YouTube might have took it off, but yeah. Welcome to the reservation. You all now live on a global reservation, a global gulag. Well, the virtual aspect will be the gulag, right? You will be in that VR world, clicking on things to earn credits to be able to get your food ration, or to reduce your carbon tax. Yeah, all this stuff is slowly being implemented. Well, they're trying to get all this stuff implemented, and the current crisis is the cover excuse, the cover story to make most people toe the line, because most people just want to be happy and healthy and get on with their lives. And if they're told there's a dangerous illness around, they tend to react in ways like we've seen. Yeah?
And we want people to speak just one very simple thing, the truth. Yeah, that's it. And it's simple. It's just that we haven't had that forever, for a long time. And now we're moving into that age, which is good. So let's just see what happens, because that's going to be powerful, and that is already powerful, because you see what they're panicking like at the moment. So just remember that, guys. That's what we're moving into, a new era. You know.
Yeah. Certainly, some of them. I suppose you could describe it as panic. It just made me think. It reminds me of many years ago as a bit of a sort of joke. Maybe it's a bit of a nerdy thing, because it was in relation to the Cthulhu mythos. For those of you out there that know things like H.P. Lovecraft, that kind of Cthulhu mythology. And it was just, we were playing one of the tabletop games many years ago, and one of my friends made the joke about, like the thing with Cthulhu is like the best you can hope for is to be eaten first. And for those, for many of those puppets, those flesh puppets that are the faces that we see in politics and whatever, that are supposedly the ones that do all this stuff, Bojo and whatever.
Yes.
They are just flesh puppets. They're doing it for their own power, desires, and whatever. But and this is why as well, I think relates to the kind of stuff we're talking about, corporatism as well. For many people, they just see that this thing, this machine, this corporate entity is so big, so vast, so powerful that it seems unassailable. Therefore, they make what is really a psychopathic decision, certainly a sociopathic, but really psychopathic decision, to join the machine, because they feel that, well, if you can't beat it, it's like standing behind the psychopath. I can't beat the psychopath in a fight, so I'll become his gang member and I'll stand behind him and I'll just, get the crumbs that he leaves when he kills other people. Well, it's that kind of choosing to work for the devil kind of thing,
but all built on lies, Cookie, and very dodgy foundations. And if you're building a house, you've got to get the foundations correct. Otherwise it's not good.
Perceived power is built on illusion. Like there's an old meme image of there's like a shadow of a lion roaring on a wall, but when you look down, the shadow is just a little kitten, and it's just the angle of the light that is projected onto the wall that makes the little kitten look like a big lion.
It's like
is the majority of what the system is.
Well, this is what they're doing right now, Cookie. The perception controlling that, what you perceive, you know, is to be the truth, and what is going on right now is real. It's real, this, and get you to buy into it in such a degree. But that's where the spell's breaking, you see, and that's where it has been breaking for quite a while now. It's not just like, you know, this year. It's been an unraveling process that's been taking place, and lots of people have been on this journey, you know, to unravel it all and get to where we're going now with it. And people's perceptions are now beginning to, you know, alter. They're beginning to see what is real now, what is the lie that they've seen with the mainstream, and then lies from the politicians,
and where I think
and
fundamental
religion and all the rest of it, you know, all this stuff that they've promised and, you know, delivered on nothing at the end of the day. And the other thing I forgot to mention was Brexit at the end of the year, where next year you might end up, you know, we might end up with problems with food and things, and borders, and people arguing over fishing rights and all sorts of shit going down. But, you know, let's just see.
That's right. The foundational thing of the realization of where the state, the system, the government gets its power from. I think a lot more people are starting to realize that, you know, the government only really exists the way it does because we all keep supporting it. You know, it's like the classic image of all the people at the bottom of the pyramid holding the pyramid up. Yeah. If all the people at the bottom just walk away, the pyramid falls apart. It doesn't exist. It has no power. Literally, they have no power.
Yeah.
As a example I've used, not for a while, but back in the day, I'd often say, like, the Queen is just a little old lady in a very big house. That is it. Everything else is things created in a kind of virtual space on paper, and, you know, stuff like that. It's lore and mythology. It's not that she is somehow, you know, a superhero that goes around making the world do what she wants. No, she's just a little old lady in a big house.
Yeah.
More people, I think, are starting to get to that point of realization of, like, well, this government is only there in the first place because we enable it, we allow it, we play their game.
Yep.
If we stop playing their game and just walk away, they have no power. Now, I rate my chances in a punch-up with Bojo. Yeah, I ain't exactly fit, but, you know, I think I'll be all right in a punch-up with Bojo. So does Bojo have any power over me? No. He can order other people to suppress me, but he himself, he doesn't have any power. He only has the power that we project to him.
Yeah, and that's through our own egos, you see. That's the control of, we think, you know, someone has to have some sort of authority over us sometimes, and that's what makes us comfortable. And that's not true. That's where people are moving into their own power. That's what we've been talking about for a long time, you know, moving into your own and doing some work on yourself and that kind of thing. And, you know, and just basically getting yourself ready, you know, for the rest of your life, really, and what it should be like, not what they want it to be like, or they're trying to tell you it should be like. That's something that, again, is all part of the mainstream, as we talked about, or that sort of programming, or even education, the way that they, you know, educate us now. That's also very relevant into how people are seeing the world and how they react to things. And we've seen with the last few years of the very sensitive, you know, younger folk who, you know, call them all sorts of terms and names, but you know what I mean. People who have just been, they've been mollycoddled a bit too much, and they can't handle things.
Lacking life experience.
Yeah, this type of thing
by the system.
Yeah, because of the way it's been set up for them when they were born, you know, 20 years ago or whatever, or a bit long, you know, that sort of digital, you know, entertainment world that was all coming in. It's part of our, you know, as you called it, the virtual gulag type of experience. You know, that's keeping you in your homes, keeping you entertained, keeping you happy, keeping you nicely, you know, like a happy slave.
Hello to Roe Penguin Scotland.
Yeah,
that's why I picked out his comment, because that's kind of what I was talking about. I know, you know, he's saying Brave browser. I know it's a crypto mining browser. You know, that's part of what it does, but this kind of thing is applicable to all the browsers, even Firefox, even though it's not anywhere near as bad as the majority of them, but they all harvest little bits of your data.
Yeah.
And that data is what they use to generate currency, energy. It is energy, but in their terms, it emanates as little, you know, ka-ching bits of wealth, bits of monetary value. But in effect, that is what they do, and that is the virtual gulag. That's why I describe it that way. Yeah, we will be linked in to a system where our engagement with their gamified systems is how we generate the economy. Yeah. Majority of everything else is going to be done by automated systems using bio and nanotech and things like that. So what do you do with all these people in your society that are now basically extraneous to need? Well, you give them a new need. In the new society, they can be used to generate an income for the landowners, the property owners, the usurpers, controllers, whatever you want to call them. Yeah. So they've come up with a new way to generate currency from us. That is this kind of virtual environment where everything is gamified, but what it's really about is harvesting data from you, which then, like they're doing at the moment, they're monitoring all the social media, they're seeing the public's reaction to the things they're putting out in the media. So they say lockdown, and then they go and look at their little view screen. They're like, oh, let's see, oh, they're getting angry. Yeah, we'll get them out on the street soon, any day now. We'll have them rioting. Yeah, they're looking at that kind of information live. This is not something where it takes several months for a think tank or whatever to analyze the data and give the government some report. Now, they can monitor this information now live. They can get a live sort of review of the general public's reactions and attitudes to what's been going on. So we are already, in effect, being forced to participate in that kind of gulag effect. But at the moment, it's still primarily geared towards political influences and currency, political value. But it is going to become more and more intrinsic to the way society operates. It will be used to generate income, which can then obviously be spent on resources. Yeah.
Not if the power goes down. So
what do you do for a living? I'm a social media influencer. Click. Oh, the power's off. What are you going to do now? Shit. I'm going to sit in the corner and count me beans.
Yeah, that's a possibility, isn't it? People have rumoured that about, the next move of being really draconian is switch off the power, for certain times of the day.
Rolling brownouts.
Yeah.
They could disguise it in ways of claiming that because of the COVID, because of the lockdowns, there's been situations at a local substation where workers at the substation were ill, so we had to shut it down. So your little local area has lost power for however many hours per day. Yeah, rolling brownouts, and they can be used as collective punishment.
Yes,
I think
like what they're doing now, Cookie. They're doing that right now with all this. I see it as punishments of people just defying.
Why are they locking down certain areas? They'll claim it's because there's been a spike in cases, but that correlates to them increasing testing in those areas. So why are they locking down Birmingham? Because they're claiming Birmingham's got a massive spike, so it needs to be controlled. It's like, well, has it got a massive spike because you sent the army there? Well, they were Air Force, to be more correct. You sent military forces there to go door to door, getting people to do testing. So you therefore have much more testing being done. And you wonder why there's a spike in the numbers, because you're doing all this.
With a dodgy test, I might add. A dodgy test, not a test that actually is accurate. Punishment. Yeah, and then there was a guy, I heard a story, and this is true, someone who'd actually gone for a test. Turned up at the test center and the queue was very large, so they decided just to go home because they couldn't be bothered waiting. And then they got a text the next day saying they tested positive. So there's that kind of shit going on. So I think I might have mentioned that before, but yeah, that's the kind of rubbish that is happening, and the sort of incompetence and the fact that we know, and both Boris and Dominic Raab have both admitted that this test isn't accurate. We've mentioned it here many times over the weeks.
93% or 1 in 9.
But basing their whole fear campaign and rising figures on that. Wow. So there you go.
I put this up because Mahatma Malevolence is referencing there's I call it a documentary if it's 10 hours long.
Wow. That's a long one. Yeah.
For people that are interested, check that out. The story behind the story of COVID-19. There's a lot of work now starting to come out like that,
Yeah.
where people are putting together, correlating, collecting, amassing all the evidence that shows that maybe not necessarily, being able to reveal the direct planning. Like, it's not like they've got a copy of the document where it says, we'll do this, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do this. But the evidence of pre-planning, or certainly like the Great Reset project, it was just so convenient that they've been planning this idea for however many years, and then all of a sudden the perfect Pearl Harbor moment happens so that they can introduce it. Yeah.
Yes.
So every time I watch Charles Schwab, I just keep thinking of Dr. Evil. And every time I listen to him talking, I just imagine like hang on, I'll pull it back up again. Share screen, that one. I just hear the sound of the German rallies with Hitler's voice screaming in German in the background, and Charles Schwab sitting there going, yes, and then we will change society. And it's like, Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil. Anyway, yeah. That's just me, maybe. I'm not saying he's a Nazi, but, you never know. He may be genetically, maybe he's been cloned from somebody previous. Maybe he looks a bit similar to some of those leaders during the Second World War, but yeah. Hello to, sorry, I'm distracting myself terribly again tonight. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Sonia White, hello. And Jason Edwards, hello. And the Open Mind Skeptic, hello. And I think I saw another name in there. Patrick Nee, hello. And Dottie, hello. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining in the chat room. That is what it's there for. Right, yeah. Okay, I'll scroll right down to the refreshing of the chat again. I'm not sure if it does work in the StreamYard view. Like if you put the @ and then the person's name. So like if you wanted to ask me or Peter a question, put like @ Hairy Cookie Monster, and it sort of highlights the comment in the chat. But I don't think it actually shows up in the StreamYard chat, which means I need to keep referring to the YouTube page to see it. Sorry. I was just saying if you wanted to like ask us anything or say anything direct, it's better to do that so that it stands out in the chat, because otherwise I've got a terrible habit of missing things if people are asking me stuff, because I'm scrolling down the chat trying to read everything at a fast pace. Just miss.
Yeah, I do that when I'm live. I sort of keep scrolling and think, oh yeah, missed a few. Days is in, by the way, and
Days.
So South. I don't know if you mentioned So South before.
Hello, So South. So I've got into the habit of reading through the chat at a later date, to see if there's anything important I missed, because most of the time I can't keep up with it while we're broadcasting.
Well, I don't get time to listen back to it at all. Half the time, I never get a chance, and I upload it onto the BNT, onto the brand new tube. So I do that, and then just stick it on there. And then, but to watch that back or look through that, I'm just too busy. Yeah, I just think I've done it. I know what I said.
So, I don't listen to it. Yeah. Or very rarely do I listen back to them. I just mute it and put it on double speed.
And watch the chat just go quickly. I should try that maybe. Yeah, maybe give that a go. Yeah, I do miss it sometimes. And I didn't even say hello the other week. I just got so carried away with chatting.
Can get a bit like that now.
Yeah, it does, and I'm just not paying attention to that. I'm just doing what we're doing, and sometimes I will look at it. I'm looking at it now, or I look at it, when we're doing the Wednesday chat as well. I will have a look at it, but there's that many links to share, and I'm doing that all that as well.
And I feel as well it's important to reiterate. I speak from my own point of view. I'm not projecting onto anyone else, but for me, I'm not here to be anyone's leader. I'm not here to be the leader of a group in any way at all. Yeah. So I like the fact that people are interacting with each other in the chat and on other shows and things like that. To me, that's what's important. not that people want me to tell them what to do if they ask me a question in the chat or something. It's like, Cookie, what do you think of this? It's like, well, this is just my opinion. Yeah, I'm talking from my point of view. You might see things differently. You need to be your own leader. I'm not your leader. Yeah, so.
But we share perspectives and ideas, and that's why we do it, isn't it?
Resonate.
Resonate, and where we're all coming from, we're all,
we're all rowing in the same direction. We're all trying to sail in the same direction. But my point is, I suppose, I don't want it to seem like the concept of the chat is that people are only there so they can ask us questions directly or interact with us as if we're the leaders of this little group. No, this situation has never been like that.
No.
Even though I know there's some personalities that are bigger than others, so some people maybe, seem to be a bit dominant or stand out to the front or whatever, but that's just people being people. Each one's got their own personality. I know I can be long-winded and use a lot of words to say stuff, but my point is like now even more so is the time when people need to see this media for what it is, which includes some of the bad elements of it, which includes that things of looking outside for an external authority. Yeah,
oh, it's in you. It's not.
It's I know it's a sort of natural propensity that we all have, because even everyone, right from a child, you're looking to somebody outside of yourself.
Well, that's a child, you see. That's the development, isn't it? And that's where we lose what we've been. Like I say, we're born. Everyone's been affected by how we do things in the West, or how we do things.
Well, it's globally, really.
Globally, of a few tribes maybe that still exist, maybe that are doing things.
It's one of those
in a good way.
It's a psychological and spiritual element of all of us that the system has learned to manipulate.
Yeah,
that's why I wanted to make this point. Yeah,
your growth from from the start.
Bojo appears on the media and makes these statements, makes these diktats, and expects people to follow him as if he's king of the world. And in the same manner, people should look at what he's doing and go, "Oh, yeah, right." And if you choose to, you should be able to look at this kind of stuff and do the same thing. I'm not your authority. I'm not your arbiter of your reality. That kind of shit is getting pushed a lot at the moment. I feel it's.
Do you know what the best way to describe it is? Just regular people. We're just regular people working it out. Yeah, we're working it out. We all should be working it out and seeing what doing it in that way. Sorry,
I won't say we, just because it's too much of a presumption again.
Yeah.
I'm just one of them people that like to voice my ideas and opinions on shit and talk about certain subjects. I find it interesting and invigorating and empowering to find out information about various things and blah blah blah. But yeah, I am just another Joe Smo trying to get on with my life while at the same time doing this kind of stuff. For me, this is part of what needs to be done, what should be done, what is a good thing to do. I don't want it to sound like it's a chore. It's not at all.
No, it's not
a job. I do this as a vocation. I do
Same
this
here.
because I think and feel it is the right thing to do.
I'm
not doing it to earn money. I'm not doing it to earn credit or accreditation or any shit like that. No, I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I've always gone into it myself. And even if I got one view, it wouldn't matter. I don't care if I get no views. I still do what I do because it's the right thing to do. And if people are thinking like me, and I know they are, and I know they always have been, they're all scattered all over the planet. It's a lot of awake people and working with a good side, working with the good stuff. And that's what it means. It's just like you say, it's something you have to do. It's something I was bored. You just have to do it. I don't know. Just keep doing it and see what's going to happen.
See, Tazzy tweaked it. He's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
You just see how it goes, isn't it? You go with the flow. I've always said that, and
it's very relevant at the moment with everything that's going on, and especially I thought, considering we sort of mentioned that concept of like media is a weapon or can be used as a weapon, and the kind of delusion and illusion element of power and authority that this thing can elicit, Bojo looks really, really important when you see him on the screen behind his big podium and the flags behind him and everything. But if you actually met him face to face, you'd probably think differently. So the illusionary value of that fourth wall. I don't want there to be that illusion of a fourth wall.
Yeah.
See the illusion for what it is.
Yeah. I think once you go through that phase of that sort of inner stuff, we're just skirting around here, but yeah, that inner work or whatever, then that what appears outside and what they throw at you is easy then to deal with, in a sense, because you're learning about yourself, you learn about your own ego, you learn about a lot of things about yourself, and you just don't what you call buy into it. And it's just that having that that discernment, understanding that there's it's a minefield of stuff they'll throw at you continually, and you just have to know that how you react to that is how the rest of you will how you'll behave out there. It's because you got to, again, I'm talking myself in circles here, but it's what I'm saying, it's that inner world has to reflect outer, and once that's in balance, once that's in shape, then you'll see the world in a much better way. And that's just by doing basic meditation and stuff like that, and just getting more grounded. And once that gets into place, what you see then it changes your mind, it changes your thought process and things of this nature, and it calms things down, and you can see the world much more clearly. And I found that over the years, over the last 17 or 20 years or whatever, doing not that I do meditation a lot these days, but you know what I'm saying, if you move through these processes and you do these sorts of work on yourself and you move through it and you see what it is, and then you can get to some form of balance in your life. And that's what they don't want you to be, in balance. They want you to be all over, left or right, or make a choice, and all confusing. And the choice is you choose yourself all the time. And that's not being narcissistic or anything like that. That's knowing who you are. And you just follow the natural stuff, no harm or loss, this type of thing, live a good life in that way, and not be taken down the path that they want you to go with all of this stuff. But I think that energy's coming in really strong at the moment. It's changing. It is. I feel like back in 2009 when there was another little surge, it seemed, or maybe it was something else, but it certainly felt like people were connecting up, and maybe that was people just going out and getting more computers and connecting up to the internet,
and having more time being
to do
shut in at home.
Realizing let's get one of these computer things and see what it does. Back in the day, I'm thinking, what's this thing going to do? Because obviously it was an analog world, wasn't it? For we do remember that analog world.
I'm still mostly analog.
It's still mostly analog.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of that comedy show. I'm mostly analog today.
This week I'm mostly analog.
Yeah. So now we've moved into this new type. It's it's certainly changed, hasn't it? And now we're at that precipice. We've moved through this. We're into a 2020 vision. Everything coming, everything being revealed. You can't deny it, isn't it? It is all out there. I think the political thing started a while back with Brexit, and obviously with other stuff, but certainly as it's moved forward, it's all there now. All the Epstein, all the child trafficking stuff, everything is out there, and people are seeing a lot of different things now, and it's just like floodgates have opened, and consciousness is rising. Shall I say it again? Consciousness is rising. So it is. You can't. What they do about it, how they're reacting to that, is exactly what they're doing now to us. They're doing exactly what they're doing. So for a reason, because they know that. So
I was thinking of another metaphor when talking about a kind of spin effect. The vortex spins faster the closer to the center. Until eventually you get into that kind of eye in the center of the vortex, which is kind of like the meditative state. That's when you reach the balance and you sat in the center of the vortex and everything's calm and still. You're in the eye of the storm. And politics is all about like spinning plates. He's trying to drag you to extremes, which is why they commonly rely on emotional manipulation That's why it's emotive subjects and simplistic slogans and concepts, so that it appeals to your emotion more than anything else. Knee-jerk reaction kind of shit.
Yeah.
So you get like the big headline on this: 150 deaths. Notice the numerals are in red. There's this big looming red spot coming. But then you look at a little sub bit that deaths with it for any reason within 28 days of a positive test. So they got a whole month to like try to go, oh, look, he got tested positive. Yeah, but he was squished by a bus. Oh, yeah, but he tested positive. Put him in the numbers, like 150. It's manipulating via emotion.
Yeah.
But when you start doing that kind of inner work process, and you have time for yourself to be with yourself, and you can find that center of the vortex. You find that calm, still place where you have authorship over your emotional content, not them. You're no longer reacting. You have the option of responding, but you're not reacting. There is a difference. And the manipulation is all about trying to pull your strings, prod your triggers, etc., etc.
Yeah, and people, I think people are, well, like I think people are what's doing like a sort of a purge, so to speak, a spiritual purge, or call it what you want, or they're dealing with things, or I said about karma, coming around quickly for people, people, I just think that's just that happens anyway, but it just seems to speed it up. So we don't know what's going on behind the scenes to a certain degree with people, but I know there's that is going on. And people are beginning to talk, communicate properly. So it's had the opposite effect over the last 8 months. They've locked people down, or and lots of people have been sharing lots of good stuff. They haven't been able to shut everything down, even though they've gone for the, we'll shut the naughty channels down, the big channels or whatever. But there's still plenty of people sharing a lot of stuff. And they tried to even hack brand new tube, didn't they, the other week? Try and stop anything like truth coming out. So but it's not working. So that's again just
back,
go
it was
on.
back up again fairly quickly though, wasn't
I think it just
days.
it was the videos were lost. I think quite a few. If you look on the site, I think some was lost like a week's worth on some channels. I don't know if they've all been restored, but I don't think they have. But that's what it doesn't matter, because people still upload content. Creators still create content. So that's what they do.
I thought this was the best to sort of explain this point, but I'm not certain of this, because I've never spent the time trying to research the kind of the etymology of the phrase, but the concept of the sheeple. Why do people get accused of being sheeple? That's because sheep commonly follow the arsehole in front of them. When they're walking along in their flocks, or when they're being driven along, they follow the arsehole in front of them. So that's Bojo on the TV. He's the arsehole being put in front of you. Are you going to follow him like a sheep? But, yeah.
Well, people are asking many, many more questions now, which is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's on this one as well. It's all right. Yeah. This is what I was on about. This is cognitive infiltration.
Wow.
This is them, the system, trying to appropriate that sheeple concept and dissolve the power that it has, or the perception of power that it has.
I've never seen a sign like that, but if I did, I'd be like, I'd like to think someone would just cover them up.
Yeah.
Because
just stick a picture of Bojo's face on it. Or Dominic Cummings.
Yeah.
You see, if anyone's seen it, I'm not saying this as an endorsement. It's just more TV media. But I did laugh out loud when I saw the new spitting image portrayal of Dominic Cummings, and he's this alien in a like human skin disguise, and it is quite funny. But I thought that was quite appropriate.
Where did he come from? He's another infiltrator like Mandelson. Remember him in the Labour Party?
Oh yeah,
another
the
type.
demon Mandelson.
Yeah, the Mandelbrot.
Yeah, the vampire in the shadows.
Yeah.
There is quite a few memes.
Oh yes, clocks are going
posting in
back.
this
That's
week.
right. Yes, mustn't forget. Well, you don't have to remember anymore, do you? It's everything's digital.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a ticking clock.
The smart device will tell you what to do and when to do it.
And when to do it, yeah.
I ain't been for a shit for the last year because my phone didn't tell me that I needed to go and poo. So Well,
I mean, you had the bleep, yeah, okay.
I haven't had the brown alarm go off yet. So,
Oh,
but
dear.
this to me as well is a way it demonstrates how they manipulate truth, because there is a truth to the reality that diversity built Britain, because Britain is a nation of mongrels. We've had so many cultures come to these islands and become part of what we now call Britain or British culture. We're not the pure ethnic race that some people seem to think. We're not. We're mongrels. We've been mixed races for
a few thousand years.
Yeah, a few thousand years easily.
Yeah.
So the idea that diversity built Britain is actually fairly accurate, but what we call Britain, or what they perceive, what they portray as being Britain, is not the general populace and our mixture of cultures that we now call, British culture. What they're talking about is the governance that created the corporate entity that is labelled the United Kingdom and the Territory of Northern Ireland. I can't remember exactly the full proper title, but that corporate entity is only existing the way it is because of a small cadre of people that sit in positions of power that have manipulated the population over many generations to give them this sixth society, referencing Jiddu Krishnamurti again, the sixth society illusion that they call Britain. I don't want the Britain that they call Britain. I want the Britain that's made up of all the people that populate these islands.
Yeah.
Not the governance. The government didn't create this shit. It's all the people that built everything that's here.
Well, think about what they've done over the last 8 months with the UK. They've really divided it, haven't they, in the sense of this bullshit that we're going through now. And I'd get your 50p's while you can, because you won't be able to use them for much longer the way it's going. If they want to say they're all dirty and have germs on them, and that's everything, isn't it?
You might need them
forever.
And
the
automated food dispensers that are going to be on your high street soon. You might need them for that, or for the euthanasia booth. When you finally had enough of all the craziness and you just need a 50p coin to get into the euthanasia booth.
Soylent Green.
I haven't bothered mentioning anything to do with the American election stuff, apart from what I was ranting about Trump and the manipulation.
And he's senile as hell, isn't he? That one.
Yeah. Biden.
And his son's dodgy as fuck.
There is so much to this. I think it's really good in a way, because potentially it could reveal a lot more of the shit. It's another data point in the great revealing, the apocalypse that's been happening. The evidence that's come out, not just about him, the evidence links to a lot of the network. So I think this is primarily why they did the whole QAnon purge, because they knew that a lot of the evidence, the QAnon crowd would use it to push political agendas, whereas really the evidence that's come out via his leaked files, leaked data, reveals more about the network as a whole, which includes both sides of the political argument. That's why they've been trying to shut it down. They don't want the general public looking at the bigger picture of what the evidence indicates. They want to make it about a political fight between Trump and Biden. That's not really what the evidence reveals. The evidence reveals the scope and the international reality of the networks that, he was just, again, another flesh puppet, but
all linked
in it for himself.
Trafficking of humans, children, you name, just involved in some awful dark shit. And like I say, it's people are finding this out. This
Yeah.
is what it's about.
It's all starting to come out into the light.
Yeah. They can't hide anymore.
Yeah, the world's been burning since it began. Yeah, we didn't start the fire. The world keeps turning. Yeah, there's a few of these. They are supposedly rolling out the vaccine, even though they haven't actually done all the testing yet. But, you know, they're going to start making it anyway because all the governments have paid your tax money for it.
Because that's what they said they're doing. And
in Russia, they're already onto the second iteration of their vaccine.
Yeah, they've apparently.
That's the same one again showed earlier, but the main one I really wanted to show was this one. Because this is, you know, in terms of the psychology of a lot of what's been happening and the mass psychology, the way that that is being manipulated again via the media primarily. It's really what's being put out by the media that's causing this kind of effect. But yeah,
I'd say that's right. Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, Munchausen
syndrome by proxy.
Yeah,
because if you've got somebody who's been through an academic system where there is this expectation, you know, is this the future you expected? This expectation that the information presented to you in the textbooks and told to you by your tutor, your professor, whatever it is, that information is expected to be factual, accurate, up to date, correct. Yeah. So then the people who work within those kind of care industries take that information and do what they do in their daily job based on the presumption that what they've been told and presented with is accurate, factual, up to date, correct. So for a manipulator, like the big agenda manipulators, all they need to do is put incorrect information in the textbooks. And then everybody in that industry goes around doing things incorrectly because they read the book and think, well, that's the factual information. So I do my job based on that information. So that kind of thing has rippled down. Yeah, it's rippled through various industries. I mean, this is talking about psychological health and, you know, the kind of effects as described by Munchausen syndrome. But I'm sort of using it as a reference as well of how the manipulation of knowledge and what is perceived as truth can have far-reaching effects once it's passed through several stages in its use. Yeah. You know, it's like the old whispers game, you know, where you'd say one sentence at the beginning of the line of people and you whisper it in the ear of the next person, and by the time you get all the way down the other end of the line, the sentence is something completely different. Yeah, but this is psychological projection that for a lot of people who work in the healthcare sector, they think they are actually helping people because the information coming out of places like the CDC and the WHO has been based on these false premises, like the tests giving false positives. If they're told that the test result from, you know, if they get a test result that comes back positive, that means that person who's been tested is a carrier of the dreaded illness. They just work from the presumption that that is accurate. So this is becoming psychologically embedded into the system. The system itself is becoming the epitome of this
caregiver
definition. Yeah. The system is creating the situation that makes the caregiver project onto the person they're caring for.
Yeah. Well, there's an army of lawyers or solicitors or whatever you call them, whichever country you're in, waiting in the wings, just like the doctors who've been denied any truth or any, you know, the professors who signed that petition we mentioned the other week.
The Great Barrington Declaration.
There's plenty of good people waiting, and it's just a matter of time before their voices get heard. So, and they are being heard on channels and stuff. They are being, you know, so, you know, people are hearing this now. It is indeed. and it'll just get more. It'll hit the mainstream. They'll have to report the truth. They'll be forced to. They've got no choice but to be saying the truth.
Or they'll be forced into a position like Baghdad Bob,
Yeah,
where he stands in front of a line of tanks rolling into Baghdad and claiming that he sees no tanks.
yeah.
Yeah, there are no tanks. We're doing perfectly fine. Their lie will become so blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
This was, I think Tony's just put it in the chat. This was supposedly in Bogota.
Yeah.
This is their COVID protection for the kids, but they're touching hands. They're going to have to be sanitized now.
It's crazy.
So it's the fact that it mentions app as well, because of all the stuff at the moment about, what is it? What's the slogan? We can't do this alone. Get the app on your phone. I think it's the slogan.
No way. I've not. Well, I've not looked at much of the last few days, but
I only know it because I've
sad.
seen other people talking about it. Yeah, it's supposedly an advert that's doing the rounds on UK media. So
Right. I don't watch that crap, so
yeah, and I'll just leave it there, like on that one. That will do for the sort of and finally moment. Police on the moment. Police on the lookout. Reports suggest COVID-19 may be posing as innocent viruses such as the common cold. I noticed that as well with I watched a bit of a video clip of Piers Corbyn speaking in Sheffield, and he's like I mentioned this a few weeks ago. Fair play to the guy. He's been going up and down the country, talking in different towns.
Yeah.
And he's been very direct in what he's saying. And apart from like the situation in London, in Trafalgar Square, where they tried to arrest him, and there was an incident in Wales, I think, when he was speaking in Wales the other week, where they sort of, made a very weak effort to try and arrest him, but the crowd just, surrounded him and the police gave up and left. But watching that video clip, there was about 30 people stood, just a little crowd, and they were all spaced out. They were anti-social distancing. They were spaced out, listening to Piers talking. And like I said, there was about maybe 30 people at the most, and there was an equivalent amount of police. Yeah, it's like they must have had one police person there for every person that was in the crowd, and it was like, for fuck's sake, this is the level, you could call it almost paranoia, of the police actions to deal with anyone questioning the official narrative. 100 of you turn up to do a protest or speak in a public square or something, there'll be 100 police turn up. Whereas if you protest something else like climate change, there'll be 1,000 people there and there'll be a handful of police, to applaud them and give the knee and all that kind of shit. As Voltaire said, if you want to know who rules over you, find out who you cannot criticize.
What about if 20 million come out?
Yep. What about if 20 million people just go out and dance and sing in the street and start telling jokes and laughing loudly, real belly laughs, really make the point that, these things are not going to kill you. Dancing in public is not going to kill you. But they want you to think it will. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully I've made sense. I know, I often say that, but it's just one of those sort of psychological tics almost. I hope I made sense. Did I confuse you? Hopefully I didn't confuse you. But yeah, I'm sure I've been rambling about so many things recently. It just seems to be a culmination of lots of stuff happening now. I was quite surprised when they sort of mentioned the possibility of this circuit breaker lockdown, because I thought they'd just go back to a national lockdown thing. But lo and behold, now as the propaganda built up over the last week, and now here we go. Wales is out of the gate first. You know, you're first off for the race to see who's going to lock down the most. I shouldn't laugh because I know it's going to cause shit, but I'm laughing at the propaganda of it all.
Yes, same here.
So thanks, folks, for joining in. Thanks for people posting in the chat, and thanks for everyone tuning in and just listening. Hang on, if I stop the screen share now, I think showing that enough for now. Maybe we'll show it again another time. I'll check back on the YouTube page. Yes, it's all still going. Cool. Thanks for listening to us for a couple of hours. Thanks for giving us your attention. We'll be back again on Wednesday night for the reality chat on the reality chat channel. And check out Steve Tagoose on a Thursday night with a mystery show. And as far as I know, Jason's still broadcasting Raconteur News on a regular basis through the week. Check that out as well. And I'm sure we'll be back again soon. I know I'll be back next week until they pull the plug. So take care, folks. Don't believe all the bullshit.
Thank you, Cookie. Cheers all in the chat as well. Thanks.
Good. Cheese. I'm going to click the button.